Hello, hello. Welcome back.
Hello, hello.
Humpday Q&A.
Humpday. Yep.
We need to spread the word. So if you're watching,
yes,
send out links. We want to get some more people in here. We have questions answered. I'm sure plenty of people have lots of questions.
Yes.
So we want to get them answered.
Also, send out tweets about Humpday Q&A and send out tweets about Flutter Vikings.
You were just clipping them really terribly on the high end.
I'm clipping. Too loud?
Yeah, definitely too loud. Anyway.
How about that? Any better?
Yeah, a little bit better. A little bit closer, maybe. Anyway, right. Let's crack on. So, yeah, let's with no further ado. So we're on here with Danielle today. Let's get going through this. Right. My name's Simon Lightfoot, Flutter community leader. I'm also CTO at DevVenturers London, and you can follow me on Twitter at DevVenturers London. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Scott Stahl, community leader, organizer, GDG Cleveland. I write code at DevAngels London and then watch Simon refactor everything except for my imports.
And we have a Randall Swartz in the background. May the Swartz be with him. He's our question magician. He's going to be jumping over all your questions. So, as usual, make sure you have a queue in front of your question, and we'll get them in the chat, and we'll get them answered. And he'll be coming on to join us in the show as well. And Danielle, where are we? Let's get Danielle. Hey, hello, there she is.
Hey there, everybody.
So, you're the Flutter team leader, AADMI, and the Flutterista organizer.
That's right. Absolutely. You may all remember me from the Flutter book club that we did, and so I was one of the hosts there.
I know you forgot about that. So that feels like a long time ago now.
I know it was. So
wow,
it's got pretty quick. So
we're just gonna dive for the last sheet here, and then we'll bring you back on. And that is do's and don'ts. Great, Scott. Let's get through these.
Do's and don'ts. Be nice. Be respectful. Be constructive. Like we always say, this isn't Reddit. We have standards. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive. Don't advertise or promote your services. Don't spam the same question over and over. Little tip. Every time you post a question, we have a star. And we put the star on your question. And if you repeat the question, we put the star on the new one and take it off the old one, which puts you at the bottom of the list. So if you want to get your question answered, don't keep putting yourself at the back of the line. So, harassment of any kind is not tolerated. Come on, this one's a no-brainer. Bigotry, incels, misogyny, blah, blah, blah. And don't forget, we share the ban lists. If you mess yourself up here, pretty soon you'll find you can't log into Slack anymore, among several other places.
So be nice.
So, yep.
So
be nice. Be decent. Yeah. I know it's YouTube. Do it anyway.
Get your questions in. Come on. We got to get through this. We have limited time.
I've got one important point, though. Okay. American football season is coming up. It's the preseason right now. And I just want everyone to know that Dash has declared. So, Philadelphia Eagles, Dash has declared his favorite, Super Bowl champion.
I actually have a Philadelphia Eagles t-shirt. Just randomly. There you go.
Yeah,
right.
I'm much more on the college side with the University of Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner.
So, so Danielle, it's been a while. How's things going for you? Are you been busy?
Oh, I'm very busy. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm leading my own Flutter team at a company called Ardley, and that's been it's a lot of fun. I've been trying to go to the Matt Carroll School of Code Reviews, so that's also interesting.
I remember that.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good thing when we do it. And actually, it's probably something I could mention. I'm a little scared too. Most of the names I'm seeing probably wouldn't be able to, but I'm actually looking to grow my team. But the requirement, and here's the gotcha for it. The requirement is the person has to physically be located in the United States.
Already.
So, yes, already here, already there. But if you are someone like that is looking for a Flutter job and or know someone, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter. That's my @I'm a figure skater with the 8 is my Twitter handle. My DMs are open, so go ahead and hit me up if you qualify for that. But I'm sorry if you don't already live in the U.S. I'm not gonna be able to do anything for you.
And don't ask anyway, because how many people, you keep saying that and people outside the U.S. keep asking.
I understand. I get it. And that's fine. And if you want to, meet me on Twitter and come have a conversation, that's great. But I'm not going to be able to hire you if you're not already here. And it's not my decision. It's the company. And it's actually not even really theirs. It's just it's the people my company works with, that we have to tell them all that.
It's quite common for companies to kind of do those restrictions because dealing with like foreign policies of countries and employment stuff, it's complicated.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, it is fully remote if you are here. So, and then the other thing I'd like to probably kind of start off with is I help run a group called the Flutteristas, and it's a group for female and non-binary, Flutter enthusiasts. And so if you identify as either a female or non-binary, which is, I guess, the easiest way to say that is just neither. You don't feel like you're male or female, and that's how you deal with it. That's fine. But we have that going on. We try to have monthly meetings. We're getting back into that now. We usually get a Googler. It's the same Googlers that go other places, but we kind of get our own little smaller, private, intimate conversations with them for it. We do that about once a month. And Simon, if you've got it, if you want to join, we've got flutteristas.org. There's a little join link down there. It's just going to ask you a few questions. It's making sure you agree to our terms of service and making sure you identify as female or non-binary, and that you have a love for Flutter. And if you do, we would love to have you. We're a little bit behind on getting up to that people because sometimes it's a little hard to screen people, but that's there. And I'd love to have you do it. We did a conference last year. I don't think we're getting one in this year, but I think we'll try to get one in next year, which will also probably still be online. And
if you want to see, the videos are on this channel, this very channel.
Absolutely. Yeah, because Scott and Simon and the whole Flutter community helped us behind the scenes for it. So that was really, really helpful, and we wouldn't be able to pull it off without that. So that's kind of my intro.
Now, a little bit of information from the past. Let's say there are two places that you don't want to go to try to meet women. Okay, one, guys don't apply to the Flutteristas. It's not for you. It's not there for you to try to meet women. And the other place that you don't try to meet women is at a family reunion. Unless you're in West Virginia, but that's,
Probably any reunion is probably not good.
Anyway.
I just want to mention, just before we decide, we wear Flutter t-shirts, but we're not part of the Flutter team. So
yes, right, exactly. The number of people on this screen who work for Google, 0.
Right. 0. But I was going to say, I am wearing an Ardley t-shirt, and I've got an Ardley mug, and I do work for Ardley. So
there you go.
You're on brand. I was also going to mention that, we do. We've been in chats with the Flutter team about getting more Googlers back on the show, so we'll be starting that back up after Flutter Vikings. Flutter Vikings next week. We'll mention it now since we're waiting for some more questions coming in. I'd say that
it's free.
Yeah, you can go sign up on fluttervikings.com. You can. I don't believe there's any tickets left. There might be a couple special.
The
but,
in-person, no, but
fluttervikings.com and you'll
why do we have Fly Norse there?
Because
that's the airline.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So if you need to fly there, we recommend Fly Norse because that's what the one we've seen the best prices. But go to fluttervikings.com and you'll see that.
And if you're coming from the US, you can get premium, which is not quite business class, but it's pretty nice, and it's for a lot less than you think.
So sadly, Danielle, we're not going to see you there, are we?
No, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there. I missed out on making it this year. I plan on. I want to do one of yours. Maybe one in London would be nice.
Yeah. Well, definitely come see the sites. So let's see what questions we have stacked up in our queue.
Yep. And by the way, there's a crazy rumor that someone at Flutter Vikings wasn't paying attention and let me con them into giving me a microphone. So that could be interesting. Big mistake.
So let's get to the first question. So how can we customize font weight in Flutter? Like how can we assign font weight of 250? You can't you? I mean, it's just a
no. Well, it's 200, 300.
No. But they're the fixed ones that already exist. But you can just. Let me just be clear.
You could make something. That my other question is why. I mean, Harsh, you've been around a while. I'm sure you have your reasons.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, it's because. I
mean, 200 or 300 won't work.
There's no public constructor for it. It's a class, but there's no public constructor for it. That's really interesting. I thought there was. I think that's a mistake. I think that is a bug. There's no reason for you not to be able to use one that's out of spec. Hang on. We have a random.
Hi, hey. Greetings,
somewhere.
everyone. Greetings, everyone. Hey, so I just wanted to speak in on this because I, as a technical writer, I know that font weight is about how bold it is, not about its color.
Right.
Sure. But
so I thought you were talking about the color, like 200, 300, things like that.
No.
No.
When you insert, so hang on. Let me share. I'm looking at the documentation actually here. Hang on. Let me share this makes sense. So the font weight class has hang on, let me bring this up stream. There we go. I'll make that larger. Yeah, so the font weight class here has index, toString. It has the basic like font weight 700 is bold, 400 is normal, and so on. And it has a values list of fixed weight, and then you have this fixed. These are all constants, right? But they all have like an index value attached to them, which is interesting. The index value of semi-bold is 5, not 600, which just seems strange to me because when you define a font, you define a font with the font weight itself inside the manifest. So I can't see any reason why you would not just have 600 as the value for. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
especially the fonts that are infinitely variable. Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You have variable fonts. There's no reason why you can't have a weight that's in between something, especially if a font has lots and lots of different variations. I don't see why you would have a fixed set only.
I mean, how difficult would it be to make your own version of this class?
You can't. It's not about. It's not this class. It's because this class type is what's used when you're declining. So if I say like text star, right?
Right.
In the .ui package, it only accepts it doesn't accept the decimal value, it accepts a font weight class object. So it has to be an instance of this class, since there's no
right, but couldn't you extend font weight class with something custom and then feed that to text style?
I know it's got no because it's got no constructor, it's got no public constructor, you can't override it.
Right.
And you could do an implement, you could do a custom class implements font weight, but then all you're doing is you're encoding a new index, but the index it doesn't know about, right? Like this is what I'm trying to say. Like if this was a weight number, it'd be fine because you could just say, oh, this one's weight 250. But because this is an index, there's no relationship between those. Yeah, this is. I think I'd say that this is a bug in the UI system. honestly.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what reason they would have to having a fixed set only.
Well, there's some Googling in the background here.
You could still cache on like a value of 100, 200, whatever. Like one integer or another integer makes no difference. This maybe it was some weird optimization at some point. I don't know. I can't honestly. That just makes no sense to me. I think
it's a Flutter bug. It's a
Harsh,
Flutter
is there
issue.
a specific reason that you need this, or just curious?
Well,
or
he's probably got a font that declares itself as a font weight of 250. So there is actually a trick behind this, Harsh. If you want to, let me be clear. If you get your font, you can get the 250 weight font file, declare it in the PubSpec manifest as 300 or as 600, as some other number, and then you just use that font weight inside your app and it'll be fine. It will show us one font weight 250. It does. That's all it does. All it's used is to match the font to the actual font that you declare. If you don't have a font declared with that weight, then it uses the font weight to change the actual weighting of the default font, like the one lighter. So, no, this isn't material design constraints. I don't think. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, maybe like the material design spec itself was declared with a set of weights, and then they've used that. But still,
look in the issue.
Still doesn't make sense.
Look in the issue I just pasted. There is it's in the private chat.
I'll bring up on the stream.
There's a font features style, which can be used to specify a numeric weight.
This has been open since 2019. This get
yeah. Well, that's so you're saying so in here they're saying that they've got a
scroll down about halfway. Yeah,
halfway. Oh, I'm waiting for it. Font feature.
WGHT. Look at those letters.
WGHT doesn't seem to work.
Oh,
Ixie. In principle, this works today using font feature, but it doesn't work apparently.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, sorry. I just
let's track it. Oh no, they've added it. It's merged.
Oh,
so why is the
still open now?
Font feature. When was this? 2020. For more configurable font feature constructor, looks like. Oh, it was our good friend Robert Felker.
Probably got it.
Yeah, I think he sorted it out. All right, so let's have a look at this. So what this font feature is let's just travel back to here and chuck this in here. When you declare a text style, you can also declare a list of font features. Font features are well, the extra features that fonts can have. So, where is it? There is. And you can provide a list of them in your text style. And there's a bunch of them that are built in, and you'll see here, like alternative glyphs, case-sensitive forms. Like if you want, like, there's, I think there's small caps is a good example of that. They have that web, which is where you have, like, proportional figures. There you go. That's a good example of something. There's slight adjustments, /0, so when you want zeros with slashes through them, all these like different special little things that you can do. So they're saying that there's actually tabular figures. I don't think there's one that's pre-declared, but it sounds like you can actually declare it with the feature string from that issue ticket. So you can declare it with the feature string and the weight. So sounds like, yeah, you just put the WH, what was it? I can't remember what it was now. I'll pop the issue ticket in the live chat. You can go dig it out. Yeah, you put the tag, the 4-letter tag in the feature string, and then you put your 250 as the value, and that should do what you want. Hopefully, give it a go.
I want to save my
Go on.
Sorry. I was going to say that my direct experience of the font features is being able to use fixed width digits for a counter, so it wouldn't keep wiggling wider and narrower
so nice. Yeah,
as the counter.
Well,
yeah. So look for that there. That's where that is. Uniform.
Yeah. There's also there's I can't remember which one I actually used. There was a I'm not going to find it now. Proportional figures.
Well, that's the
proportional figures one.
There's fixed width figures or something like that. I forget what
I
it
don't know.
is.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, ordinal forms. I've used that before. That's quite a good one.
Yeah.
Ordinal forms. Let me just so we just talk about the same thing. Honestly, they're really helpful. Here's an example here. So in your string, if you write 1ST, it'll make the ST superscript for you.
Ooh.
Which is really helpful.
I wonder if that's internationalized somehow.
Stylistic.
Really English.
Superscript, subscript, swash. I don't know what swash is. Tabular figures. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, we are 20 minutes in and still on our first question.
We'll get to the questions. This is kind of cool, right? Look. So you get like the swash. If you have swashes on letters, they'll go underneath the other letters.
Ooh. It's like
and then the tabular figures is the one that you're talking about, where the figures remain monospaced, so they don't jump around. Yeah, it's really helpful. Yeah. All right. So
that's really good. I do want to say one thing though. Simon gave you a way to, if you needed to kind of fake it out. The only thing I just want to plead with you: be kind to your future self and anybody else that follows you. If you ever do anything that's like that, add a lot of comments just so that it's obvious what's going on. That's one thing I would definitely want to say there, because a year from now, it's going to all be confusing and you're going to wonder, why am I using 600 when it's really 250 or whatever.
I have to say that the font feature thing is just a workaround though, right? Like at the end of the day it should be a case that the font weight itself should be any number. I don't see any reason why Flutter doesn't do that right now.
Yeah, a year from now, you'll be sitting there screaming, who wrote this garbage loud enough for all the neighbors to hear, and then you'll realize, you'll open up Git blame and it was you.
Yeah, then you'll hear this big slap sound. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
All right. What is the best architecture for clean code? Any architecture that you can write cleanly. There you go.
Be consistent. Yeah, be consistent.
Consistency.
Yeah, that's.
And the other thing I would say it makes a difference if it's you doing a hobby project. So it's only going to ever really be you working on it. That you can use a totally different architecture than if you have a team that's got 50 people on it and they all need to be working on the code at the same time. That needs to be organized completely differently. So,
although there is the difference between packaging by feature and packaging by type, but it also does need to be said that if you are using certain state management approaches, that will already dictate a structure for you, such as if you're using Redux or Block. Now, if you're using Riverpod, you have enough freedom, basically, that gives you enough rope to hang yourself. So, but as Daniela said, be consistent.
Hang yourself on your coworkers. Yes.
I was going to say the other side of what I think Danielle was saying, and please tell me if I'm wrong, Danielle, is the fact that obviously all the team members need to understand the architecture, right? So that's the other thing, finding consensus that most people are happy with, that they can all work within. So you don't want to be just picking this latest and greatest thing and no one can do it, because now you've got there's a slow build up where you've got all the team have got to get used to it, right? And there's going to be mistakes going to be made and everything else. You've got to stay on top of those PRs. It's not as straightforward as that. So yeah. But this is the difference between working with a large team and a smaller team.
Yeah.
And from experience as well, if I'm choosing an architecture, I must be sure that there is enough online videos and printed material or written material to be able to train my coworkers, because you don't want to be the only one training all your coworkers. Let me tell you, that's not a fun thing, and I've done that before.
What we're describing here is literally what happened when Flutter first came out. People no, don't use Flutter, don't understand it, it's all knowledge, it's all new, and just that whole thing about having to get people trying it out and saying, it's not so different from what you're expecting. It's not like learning a completely new language. It's not, and yeah, it's a tough sell. So yeah.
Well,
I also want to say, go ahead. Sorry.
What I was going to say is also it's tempting to think that, I can just put things in the right directories and that took care of it. And that it's a lot more than that, So especially say you do it by feature, you got your feature for parts of it and you break that out. But if it's got dependencies all over the other place, then just the fact that you put it in like the feature directory doesn't help you. So you got to take a look at it more than just where the code's located. It's also how it knows to talk with other parts of the code. What knowledge does it have to have about the rest of the code? For example, ideally none. Ideally, it's isolated. So.
And Danielle, I want to follow up on what you said earlier about commenting stuff when you were using something unusual. I would like to put out a plea that everybody should require at least a one-line doc comment in front of a class. Give me the purpose of the class so that when I'm hovering it somewhere else in the code base, it comes up immediately in my IDE. I can see
in a
that
linter
one
rule.
line of doc.
I require Dart for every public thing.
Yeah, there's a linter check for public API methods require documentation.
Yeah.
I just have the
template. And as we found out recently, there are rules in CI that will fail if your linter checks are not all taken care of.
Yeah.
So you try to push your code and it won't even let you push.
Depends on if you set up your CI that way, right? But I mean, yeah. Which I think is most like you should do that, right? One of the things that I felt it's kind of interesting, right? So when I just want to take a brief step back on this point. When I first picked up Golang is very strict, right? You use the Go formatter, the Go doc, everything else. Dart's taken that kind of approach. It's a bit more flexible, but you want to make sure that you're using Dart format. You want to make sure that you're using all the sort of linter rules and everything built in, because it means that it's the same for everyone. You don't get one developer that I prefer tabs, another developer I prefer spaces, or I want speech marks and I want semi-speech marks. Whatever, it keeps it consistent, and I think that's so much better for a code base. Like I think all of us here on the screen have probably worked on code bases where before you had that kind of stuff, it was just all over the place, right?
Yeah,
big difference, big difference.
Okay. And one of the nice things that's happened. One of the nice things that's really happened recently is the idea that the fixes can get automatically applied with Dart fix, and also my IDE can do that one on save. So the ones that are like, please use a const when you can, just kind of automatically fix themselves now, which is really cool.
So, go on. Do we have another question?
For this next one, we're going to play Stump Simon.
Oh.
Android TV.
Yeah.
The icon button isn't clickable after it's getting focus via FocusManager.instance.primaryFocus, focusInDirection, TraversalDirection.right. What is the reason?
He doesn't like you. I would go. My first instinct is to go look at the Focus Manager mode. So Focus Manager has a mode for desktop and mobile and so on. I suspect it's detected it's running on Android and it's giving you the touch interface, which is not the same as a desktop D-pad interface for focusing. Focus behavior changes when you're in touch, when you're in and when you're in a keyboard interface. So I'm trying to remember the name of it. Hang on, let's go exploring for 2 seconds. Hang on, there we go. It was Focus Manager. Pretty sure it has a mode. Yeah, highlight mode. Highlight mode describes touch and traditional. There you go. You want traditional is the one you want, and that should fix your problem. I'm assuming that would be my first sort of go-to. Yeah, for keyboard and mouse interfaces that show currently focus control via focus highlight of some sort. If touch device like mobile phone has a keyboard and attached, they can enter traditional mode. Touch mode is completely different, right? So this is the mode that I suggest you go in. Also, it could just simply be a bug in the framework, and you're talking about an icon button. You could just make your own. You don't have to use icon button at all. It's just like a material with an inkwell on this. You can just literally just chuck a gesture detector in there, have a focus node, do your own thing. Like, if something doesn't work, don't wait for the framework to fix something. Yes, please file it as a bug if you think it's a bug. Go check the current issues, like Randall did just a minute ago. But yeah. There you go. Sorry. Anything else, anyone? I think that's it, right?
No. I've got an interesting idea for this next one, but it's interesting only because it's probably very wrong.
Do you want to read
How to call a variable if it already exists when the user enters its name. Call a variable from string data if it's the same as the variable name. So I'm imagining if somebody types in name, then they get the name that's already in there.
Hang on. Is this just? Hang on. Are they just trying to Sorry, let me be clear. This reads to me like they're trying to do variable substitution in a string. Am I thinking that? So basically, the idea. So basically, I'm thinking you have like they're trying to say, like type out something, put placeholders in, and then like it automatically substitutes the variable contents in there. How can I call a variable already exists when this is not? How does a variable already exist when a user enters its name?
In other words, how are you going to do string interpolation on the fly without the user adding a $sign?
But they can't.
Even with a dollar sign, it would be there.
Yeah. So let me be clear. String interpolation happens at compile time. It has got nothing to do with runtime of your code. Full stop. That's how it works, right? If you want to do string interpolation, that is having like a placeholder in your string. Let's say you have a square bracket, name, close square bracket, and you want to put the user's name there or something like that. You can do that. It's called regex. It's regular expressions. It's built into Dart. It's regexp is the class, and you can make a regex. And then there's actually an option to do replace all in a string, and you can get it gives you a callback function. You can say you can literally put brackets in around what you're trying to capture, and it'll give you that group back out. And then from that, you can say, oh, look up name in a hash map, get the value for it, and chuck it in the string. Like it supports. That's the way to do it. It's
now,
also don't know why you need to do it.
If you're not familiar with regex, set aside at least 10 hours for YouTube tutorials. Plan on putting some time into this. This is not a 5-minute fix.
Yeah, I always amaze people when I'm in VI and I'm doing big regex kind of replacements and stuff like that.
You kind of, what's weird is it's like any programming language. I think once you get used to it, you just kind of like it just comes out. I'm trying to do this, then I want that, then I want this, and it just all comes out. But don't get me wrong, when you get building long regex is simple because it's like one thing after the other. But reading a long regex, that's more complicated. So don't even go there.
Yeah, I amazed someone recently when I was like, basically decoding regex while I was looking at it, and they're like, how do you do that? Basically?
There's a Perl tool. There's a Perl tool that allows you to drop in a regular expression and debug it step by step, and also read out what it's doing. Very cool. Of course,
that would be a cool Flutter. There you go. That would be a cool Flutter app to have. That would be a cool Flutter app to have. Like, let's put like examples in and stuff. I will mention that. Go on.
I was going to say on that question, it looked to me almost like for example, in PHP, you put $signs in front of all your variables. And if I say, so if I have $foo equals name, if I say $foo and foo is equal to name, that's the same as saying $name. I think they're wanting that kind of interpolation. Doesn't exist in Dart.
Not happening in Dart. No. There's
there's
metadata and there's data, and they're separate in Dart.
Interesting enough, $sign is actually a valid identifier character, if I remember rightly.
Yes.
It's one of those weird ones. Like you can actually make your variables all $sign, start with $sign if you want to.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah.
There's a package that pulls in the name of every single character as $ in 2 letters. I forget the name of the package. It's
called charcode.
There it is.
And it's it's required for when you want to do your own sort of string manipulation. You use charcode package, which gives you that. Talking about that, actually, I want to mention that regex is very as much as it's fast and it can be complicated, it can also be very slow. When used repeatedly over and over again, it can be very slow. So a lot of the time, if you're just trying to do something simple, doing a simple string search, finding the character and find the last character, and you're trying to get what's in between, that could be like as simple as like 3 lines of code and just like index of this, index of that, and you're done. It's just super simple. So
It is possible.
A lot easier to make as well. It just depends on what you're trying to do, right?
it is possible to write a regular expression that will neither succeed or fail until after the heat death of the universe in a very short sequence of characters, like 80 characters. You can write a regex that just keeps trying different thousands and millions and billions of combinations and never actually says, yes, this matches, or no, it doesn't. I'd also say that another tool, if regexes aren't quite your thing, I'll paste it in the chat room here, is the Petit Parser, which builds really, really interesting grammars and you transform them and is really full-blown, exciting, interesting. It's actually what the XML package is written in, which is amazing. But it's simpler to look at than a regex by far, at least for me.
And thinking back on that, on the actual question that was asked, though, you could probably use a map to accomplish that if you had to. You know, if you really do want to have that level of abstraction, just use a map.
That was my first thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, so if you need to be able to let someone type in name and you want to get the value that's associated with name, create a map where name points to whatever that value is. And then you can just use it that way.
Right. Let's jump on
Which that's the one I was saying there's got to be something wrong with it. So I just noticed I was looking at the broadcast and I had this weird look on my face. I'm very tired. So if I look bored, if I look skeptical, it probably means I'm snoring with my eyes open.
Good luck on
Right.
that.
Haley says, what is your experience as a woman in tech? Oh, this is for you, Danielle.
I think
What is your experience as a woman in tech? I think it's for you, yeah. Any recommendations for other women in the field? There you go.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Haley. All right. Well, my experience in tech has not been as horrible as I think a lot of people my age would have had in other industries, but it's still so. My experiences have not been as much of a discriminatory nature, things like that. But it has been a lot of, I look around and a lot of times I'm the only woman in the room. You know, so that's what I see a lot, and so it tells me that we need to work on getting more women involved in tech, of learning it and doing it. In most cases, I've been involved with. Once you get to the interview state, it's fine. And you know, I've worked with jerks that were men, but I probably worked with jerks that were women too. So we have that, but that's another time to point out the Flutteristas for those of us that are women and non-binary in Flutter, is we do create that so we can have a little bit of our own little space there, you know, where we can have discussions that we wouldn't feel comfortable having around men that aren't even technical, but you know, it's just, you know, things like that. So that is something that definitely I think we can help out with, and that's kind of a passion of mine right now, is to help make sure that we've got safe spaces. And also I want to point out the fact I'm talking about this as a woman in America working. You know, I'm sure women in England, where Simon is, would be very similar, but there are definitely, we run into places in the world where it's still a huge issue. You know, and you could get beat up or injured or whatever for that. When we had our conference, we actually had to have some people booted because they were, making very inappropriate comments about some of our speakers, and so it's not perfect at all. But I have hope.
Oh, I think I know the one you're talking about.
Anyway,
his employer wrote back to me.
Okay.
Anyway, there's off that topic, right? So, but also I was going to say, it's one of those things like mechanics, right? Mechanics is inherently a men's job. It's not a men's job, right? Anyone can do that job, right? But the point is that's how it's seen in society, and I think that's also how they kind of how Ada Lovelace and some of the very early people in computing are women. Like, we have such a history in the thing, but it kind of declined, right, over a period of time, and
it's so funny too, because you look back through history, every time there's a large war, all the men go to war, all the women are suddenly doing the manufacturing jobs the men get back and they say, "Oh, well, this is man's work." Really?
Yeah.
Where were you? You know,
I had done a talk for International Women in Tech Day in LA, and one of the things I looked up on that was definitely one of the problems I've had though is role models. Figuring out who can be a role model for us out there, and we've got some great ones. Ada Lovelace is she's arguably the first programmer in history, and if I ask people to just out of the blue, I say name the decade that the first computer program was ever written. They might get the 40s, but they would miss it was 1840s. From that, she was that far ahead of her thing. We had Grace Hopper, who helped. She was a great educator and created COBOL among other things.
Liskov. There you go. Someone just mentioned Liskov.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The L in Solid is the first woman who graded PhD in comp science in USA.
Right. Yeah. There's amazing things out there. Absolutely. So we definitely have some out there, but we have to look a little further. And also to be in the LGBT area, we should mention like Alan Turing, who was a gay person in there and probably got driven to the point that he committed suicide. He was harassed so much by society, not so much the industry, but he was prevented from doing what he wanted to do because of who he was. So we definitely have some role models out there. If you're not just a straight white male, but we have to maybe look a little harder for them because we've not been there as much. So I think it's important, and I think we need to work on it. I don't know the entire solution, but I know I want to be part of that solution.
Well, and also don't forget there's a whole movie, Hidden Figures.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that was another one I mentioned. Yeah,
one of the astronauts refused to go unless I'm trying to remember her name. The one lady, unless she double checked all the math, he wouldn't go.
Yeah. I can't
He
remember.
didn't trust anyone else.
Yeah. No, there were another one I'd mention on that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great one because that's not only women, but it's also a person of color.
Yep.
And so because I think it's important.
It's the highest level mathematics. I mean, you want to talk about STEM. Mathematics doesn't get any higher than that.
There were computers before we had computers. The point I want to say is the problem is not just women in tech. It's basically a lot of different diverse type people, that we need to work on. And I really feel that Flutter is great at that. I know the Flutter team has a lot of female members that work for it. I think we're making progress. But like I said, thank you, Haley.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly share this. This is a tweet that I made. So this is a picture I took of Alan Turing's memorial at the name of it just escaped me. The Codebreakers place in the UK. It's just escaped me the name, but yeah, there you go. So he was born 110 years ago. He would be 110 years old if he was still around. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Let's see here. Now, how to deep dive into Flutter core. Not to be a smartass, but control click.
I will say that there's actually a couple of documents on the Flutter website around that. So if you go to flutter.dev, click on documentation, and then you'll find that there's if I find it, it'll be the one time that I want it that I can't find it. Inside Flutter.
Yeah.
So Inside Flutter is one of them. This is a very detailed document about how everything works inside Flutter. So there's that one there, and then there's another one. Does anyone remember what it is? It's linked to Architecture Overview. That's the one. Flutter Architectural Overview. And this also goes into heavy detail around how everything works. So if you want to know, those are the two documents I would recommend directly. There is lots and lots of videos on YouTube and stuff that go into the detailed stuff. I would suggest you look at render objects because a lot of the talks that revolve around the deep levels are around render objects, and that might give you some insights. But it's deep stuff, man. It's deep stuff.
Speaking of, I was building a widget from scratch and chose RenderObject over CustomPainter.
Nice.
Okay, what's the question?
Yeah, what's the question? I think maybe the question is, should he have done that? And the answer is, yeah, go ahead. So when I decide to choose if I decide to make a render object or a custom painter, the thing I say is, am I just painting? Because if I'm just painting, I'm going to use a custom painter. I'm going to use a render object if I'm going to handle touch. I'm going to do some interactions. I'm going to do hit testing. I'm going to do all any of the other stuff that I need from a render object. Rather than saying, oh, I'm going to use a custom painter, a gesture detector, and all these separate things together to combine to make my widget, I can just do a custom render object to do that. But again, you have less flexibility when you're down there. It's completely mutable. It's a different world. So you have to pick and choose the right thing for you. I'd say keep most people at the widget level, and when you're trying to optimize, then go to render objects if you need to. Cool. I have thumbs up from Randall. I have Randall approval. Next question. Let's see. What do we have? Do you have any experience with desktop applications for Linux and touchscreen monitor? I recently tested the Counter app and it only detects one touch in the floating button with mouse works okay. So you've just exactly spotted on the problem that you're going to get is if you're going to use a custom device that Flutter doesn't know about, the operating system can't give the information about, you need to integrate with that. So there's actually a page called Custom Embedders on the wiki. And I'm just going to go to that now. Flutter. So if you go to github.com/flutter wiki, and is there a search box somewhere? I seem to remember there's a search box. Yeah. Custom Flutter engine embedders. And there's a Linux one here. There's also a couple of projects out there. There's was it Sony have done Flutter embedded, and that would be probably my recommendation. So I'll put this link. It's Sony Flutter embedded Linux, and they've done a version of Flutter that's specifically derived for working on embedded Linux environments. And again, it's about you're probably gonna have custom touchscreen drivers that you need to get working with the Linux embedder, and that is basically you spin up the driver, you initialize it, whatever you need to do. There should be examples, and then whenever a touch event comes in, you have to send it to the Flutter engine. There's like a dispatch for pointer events that you call. I think it's called send pointer event. I think it is. Anyway, and you give it the touch finger and the device and all the metadata. There you go.
Let's see. Why does Flutter feel choppy when scrolling with the mouse? This is an old problem that's been solved quite a few different ways. In fact, there is a package. Let me see.
But there's a smooth scrolling package, which is terrible.
You mean this one?
I don't
right
remember. Yes, don't use that.
No, this is the one from 3 months ago. There's another one from 2 years ago.
No. I was looking into some of these when I came up with this exact same problem, and I'm just going to see if I can find. I think I did a gist on it, and if I haven't, I will pop it in the gist right now. Give me 1 second. So here we go. I've got a gist for it. I will share it in the chat here, and I'll bring it up on screen briefly. So correct smooth scrolling for web. 14th of July this year. So basically, all you do is
not pretentious at all.
Well,
never.
Like literally, I've seen it done a bunch of wrong ways. What do you want me to say? Smooth scroll controller, and same thing, but you basically give a velocity multiplier here, and what it does is it actually, when you scroll the pointer, that is like your scroll wheel, it actually adds up the velocity and keeps track of the velocity and goes the proper ballistic scroll that you expect, basically. And then the multiplier gives you a way of tweaking it. But it's that simple. It's literally like, what was that, 70 lines? Not even that. And most of this is just like overrides. There's like nothing to it. So yeah, that's the way to deal with proper smooth scrolling. If you're trying to use the scroll wheel, that's basically what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to find one of your gists like that, how do we do that?
Just like for gist.
Yeah, just literally like the I posted in the chat, but yeah, you just go to the gist.github.com.
Before you get into his gists, grab a drink. Okay. Make sure you don't have to go to the bathroom. You're going to be a while.
I know. I just post a bunch of stuff. Whenever I come up with something, I just like stick it on there. I don't know. Yeah. So you can
The
go
Simon Library.
Basically.
It's worth looking at. That's why I pointed it out.
Cool.
All righty. How do we decide when to use debug mode versus profile mode?
Go. I'm not gonna. I keep answering every question. You've got this, guys. You've got this, guys.
Performance.
I mean, one is when you're trying to debug, and the other one's when you're trying to profile.
Yeah.
Right.
And you'll be trying to profile to check performance.
So to be clear, I think this is the key thing here is the misunderstanding of why you have these different modes of, right? You have a release mode, which is no extra debugging, no extra like profiling support. It's just your app as you told it to be. You have profile mode, which is the same as release, except it now triggers extra profiling information. So it'll give you back how many frames per second and all these other statistical bits of information, which is a very thin layer on top of release. So you don't try to stray too much away from the release performance, right? And finally, you have debug mode, which has lots of catching, exception handling, all sorts of other things for breakpoints and all sorts of other fun stuff, which you just don't need in your release version. So that's where you go.
When you're looking at your Flutter app, if you're building it and you're running in debug mode and it looks like it's running okay fast, wait till you release it in release mode.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
it doesn't have to do any of that anymore.
Well, what you just said there is release it in profile mode, like try and profile mode, and that tell you what it's like to release it. However, you haven't got to that stage, you can still see what the statistics are, like how many like rebuilds you're getting and all the rest of the kind of stuff you get from the profile mode. And then that will give you an idea about where you can optimize and go, why am I rebuilding that many times? I don't need to do that. I can tweak it here and change it there and get a better app. But for most apps, profiling is not a big requirement. Like it's when you start profiling is one of those things you go to. Well, for me personally, is that you're building your app and then you're going to release it and you want to get some final performance out of your app, or you've released it and you're in this mode of bug fixing and performance gains. So you're just sitting there, the scrolling's too laggy. What am I doing? I want to profile that and get that faster. That's the kind of thing you start using profile mode for.
Yeah, if you're dealing with scrolling infinite lists, also animations. If you're doing complex animations, combinations of animations on the screen at the same time, now you've got to start paying attention. And that's one of the problems that I've found with Flutter is it's fast enough that we don't really have to pay attention to performance, which leads to a lot of bad habits. Just because Flutter is really fast is not an excuse to get sloppy.
Well, having been a coder for, for 4 decades, basically, that's true of everything now. We used to have to care about the smallest little thing, and people definitely get lazy with things now. So,
I mean, you didn't have the cycles to spare. You literally every cycle mattered, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's like this. It's kind of what was the thing that came out? It was like was it Windows, a new version of Windows, a new version of Office or something would come out, and it would run like crap on the current hardware because they're kind of building it and not caring about that performance
for the next generation.
They're looking for the next generation to make it go forward. But the thing is, if they could spend an extra year optimizing and cleaning that up, you'd have a way better product, and it would last longer, but it wouldn't make them as much money.
But why would they do that? See, don't you know there's a secret cabal with the operating system manufacturers are being paid by the PC manufacturers to write code that runs too slow, so people will buy new PCs?
Oh God, right?
Yeah,
come on,
it's a conspiracy. No.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
he's joking.
Let's see, where are we here? Controllers. What types of default controllers do we need to dispose? I've heard forgetting to dispose can cause memory leaks. I wouldn't call it data leak, but I'd call it memory leak.
I think that's probably why it says, what are those? You need to be Googling memory leaks.
Yeah.
Basically, so let me just clear something up. If you're using memory on your computer, let's say you look at your usage of your computer and it says you have 1 gigabyte of RAM free. You're wasting that 1 gigabyte of RAM. That's
This is what we mean by getting sloppy.
Yeah. But the point here is, like, if RAM is on your machine and it's not being used, it's sitting there idle, not doing anything. That has no purpose, right? But you also don't want to push yourself right to the limit because you need some free memory available to your system, right? So that's the thing. Now, when what happens with a memory leak is when you create a variable, when you create an object, you have a variable that holds that reference to that object. Now, if you never release that reference, if you never say it's free, that memory is still being used, and the program and the operating system doesn't know that you don't need that memory anymore. And then let's say the next frame you do it again and again and again, and on every frame you keep adding a new object to a list on every frame. What's going to happen is every frame of that's rendered by your software will add more and more memory, and eventually you'll have like a gigabyte of memory being used or more, and its job is doing nothing. It just sits there doing nothing. And that's what you call memory leak. It also means that memory can't be used by something else, some other program on your system, because it's now been used by your. So
to put it in a simpler way. Okay.
The key point here is just be a nice citizen on your computer as a developer. You allocate memory, you free the memory. It's that simple, right? It's that simple.
And
so
it's to put it in human, the memory is reserved for a particular function or class. If you don't tell the computer you're done with that and free up that parking spot, your parking lot gets full. Okay, so all of a sudden your parking lot is full of stuff, or it thinks it is, because you never bothered to tell it that things have been taken out. Now, this is a throwback. Hang on. This is a throwback to the 90s, which is coming back, by the way. The 90s is coming back.
Way before that.
Well, okay, but I mean, we're talking about destruction and garbage collection here. And this is the one place you actually have to dispose of things manually that I can think of in Flutter, that there might be more.
When I started, we didn't have garbage collection.
Yeah.
You had to free everything yourself. But
you had to dispose.
And just so we don't miss it, I want to answer the first half of the question. There is if the widget or if the class ends with the word controller, dispose it.
Yeah, it's that simple. Yeah, and you should what you can do is you can declare your variable in your state as you're controlling your state, mark it as late, assign it in initialized state, and then dispose it in the dispose method. Now you've got a matched pair. If it's in init state, it's in dispose and so on. You keep this matched. There are things like Flutter hooks which do this for you. Is that what I've told on your answer? Have I, Randall? Sorry. But yeah,
no, that's fine. I was just going to say that though. But yes, the Flutter hooks is one of the things that sort of vertically slices through all those states and lets you have one action for all that. It does it for you. It actually behind the scenes is building a stateful element, but I don't care.
If anyone's interested in researching this, it's called committed memory. It's what your app is committing to use. It's literally the analogy that Scott had about the car park, which made me think. It's literally about opening a theme park and you sell all your tickets online, so you're committing to so many people arriving and no one arrives. That's it. Yeah. That is
that's the other way around. And what I was thinking is that if you have a line at the theme park, right? People go in and you're counting how many people go in. And then as one comes out, you can let another one in. Well, what happens if you stop counting the people who go out?
Yeah.
Right? Now you've got empty spots, but you don't know they're empty. So you lose them, and then that's your leak. But yeah, also another thing is, what do they call it? Destruction in C++?
Yeah.
Having to do manual destruction. So yeah, we're very spoiled. We don't have to do our own destruction, our own garbage collection. Most of our own error handling is already handled for us. Performance is good enough. We don't have to worry about being lean, Well, so magic numbers are no longer a thing.
And the reason here why we care about it with constructors and not the other things has to do with how they're used. They're not, it's not something that it knows it needs to just get rid of at times because it's stuff we pass around, do stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of give you a pro tip if you're looking into stuff like that. Is one of the things that's fairly common is for the widget to allow a constructor or a controller to be passed in and create one if it's not. And if you do that, then you've really got to start being careful when the widget's updated to make sure that if you have to free it, if you have to dispose it, you dispose it, and if you don't, you leave it alone, and that kind of stuff. Because you can't dispose it twice. If you try to use it after you dispose it, that'll be a problem also.
Yeah, if you want to go look at text field has a good example of this in its state, which is it gets complicated. Or single child.
All right.
Scroll control. Anyway, go on.
This is a quick and easy one. Okay. I overheard someone from another team in my company saying you can't build and release Flutter for Android TV. Is it so, and why? Number one, no, it's not so. Number two, because you can build and release for Android TV.
Yeah, you can totally build.
It's an Android OS.
Yeah.
One of the
perfectly
most magical, early on in my Flutter journey, I was at Google I/O 2019, where I actually met Scott and Simon and I don't.
Yeah, Danielle and I ran off to a picnic table and had long, interesting conversations.
It was awesome. Yes, exactly.
Randall, were you there in 2019, Randall?
Were you there in 2019, Randall? Google I/O.
Google I/O 2019.
No, I have never been to a Google I/O.
Okay, that's why I didn't think I saw you there, but I was just checking.
A GDE who has never been to a Google I/O.
I've been to a GDE summit, but
back to the point. Back to the point.
The point I wanted to make was one of the coolest things I saw was I think it was the material design or whatever with Flutter talk, and on that they built like 3 versions of the same widget, and they showed it looking very, very coherent on a watch all the way up to a TV. And that to me showed the value of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything on it. They had a foldable, which I remember them being very careful because this was in the early days when the hinges were horrible. So yeah, I think that's really, really pretty cool. But yeah, you can build on a lot of stuff.
Next question: when do we use mutable and immutable models?
We need to be able to change something.
It's kind of. I just wanted to just for the people that don't know, just declare what these are. Immutable means it does not change, right? The model does not change. It cannot be changed. It is fixed. Once you've created it, it's fixed. Mutable means that you can change the contents of that model and its variables and so on at runtime. So these are the 2 different models.
Can I ask a question based on that?
Go for it, please.
Yeah, but my question kind of based on that, which may jump in, is a lot of times an immutable class will have a copy with. So it makes a new immutable class. So when would I want to use that version of an immutable where I can still make the changes if I need to versus just letting things not be final? So
it's an interesting point. There's there's the thing that we go through in Flutter, which is you want the UI to represent the state, right? So when the state changes, the UI changes, right? There's an instant match there, and in doing so, you end up needing to know when the state changes. Now, you don't get that very often. If you have a mutable model, you can change a variable and go, oops, I forgot to update the UI. And suddenly, magically, at the next time something else changes, magically the UI changes and it's just changed. You get all these weird behaviors because you forget to do something when you do mutable. When you do immutable models, you kind of get this notion of now I have a new copy, I need to give it somewhere or hand it off to someone. And then that can be pushed down the stream, go to the UI, lots of other things. And that can also help. Also, when you're trying to do notification saying, is this object the same as this last object? And if it's the same object that you've changed the value of, it is the same identical match object. So it doesn't matter that the value inside has changed. The identity match of the 2 objects is the same because they're exactly the same allocation of object. So thanks very much.
2 people driving at the same time.
So the point here is, that when you make a new copy with, you're getting you get a different object. So it's the same class, but a different instance. And that means the identity match doesn't match anymore. So then it will be detected as a change and update the UI. So for the most part, immutability is actually good in a sense that it means that you get a unidirectional data flow. Basically, you kind of get updates moving forwards. You don't get lots of crosstalk of things chatting backwards and forwards and update. There are times when that is needed, when you're doing like a tightly coupled set of classes or some, concrete implementation of something where mutability makes sense for that particular instance. But for the most part, I'd say mutable objects is normally the way to go because it keeps it clear.
And it's, the short version is use immutability whenever possible. And one of the things that makes that a little bit easier is fast immutable collections. This is a well-known package, been around quite a while by Marcelo Glassberg, Mark for short. And he's been contributing to the community now since late 2017? Mark's been around.
Yeah.
But this is a really good package, and you can use these collections in a way that's very intuitive. And they handle it behind the scenes, creating new objects instead of mutating the ones that you have.
You've also got, I was going to say the other one that's also a good one is KT-Dart. KT-Dart is Kotlin extensions for Dart, which again make everything like immutable. Right, that's the notion. But whenever I build a model object in Dart, I normally, let's say I had to pass in a list. What I'll do is I'll put the list of int or something that's inside the constructor. And in the initializer, that's when you put a colon after your constructor and put initialize in. I'll set the local variable to list.unmodifiable, whatever the input is. Now I've made an immutable list that I'm storing. Simple as that. That's what I'm going for. Just plain old basic, but whatever. Right, should we carry on with some more questions? Let's get through these before we run out of time, because
we're getting there on time.
How
to use Flutter lints? Isn't it?
It tells you.
At this point, it's standard, isn't it? It's just create a Flutter app.
Well, I think the difference here is how, you've got Flutter, you add the Flutter lints and it adds it, or you can add it to your package. But once you add it to your package, you need to modify the analysis options YAML file in your project. If you don't have one, here's an example of one. This includes the Flutter default lints, and then you can use your own linter rules to, let's say, avoid print statements or prefer single quotes and turn them on and off, right? But basically, all this file does is turn on a set default ones for you. And then you can also go to this web page mentioned here for all the details of analysis options. So we're going to add something else. Sorry, Danielle.
So
I had a couple of things, but what part of that, I guess I would say on this is also then it shows up in your analysis window, and you can see where you're breaking the lints. So that was part of it. And choosing lints is kind of a big deal, but I think the Flutter, I like the Flutter lints package. I think overall I use that without too many changes.
If you're doing a Dart only project without Flutter, you can also use the lints package, which is just lints, lints. That's it.
And it's a minor point, but it's a package, not a plugin.
Yeah. And it's actually Okay.
So I'm just going to be clear about that point, because some people may not realize this. Everything is a package. Everything that you add is a package. If it's something that you're adding, it's definitely a package. It's a plugin when it has native code. So if it has code for Android or for iOS inside it, then it's not just Dart code. Then it becomes a plugin, because it's plugging into, and it requires Flutter's plugin architecture to work.
It has to plug into something else. And also, real quick, there is this page right here in the Flutter docs. So if you just search for Flutter lints,
zoom in. You're gonna have to zoom in. No one can see.
Really, you can't read this package Flutter lints.
Yeah, that's better.
That's just that, not the text.
Well, don't try to read the text off my screen. You're supposed to read the text off your screen.
But it's even smaller on my screen.
I'm just showing you where to get it.
Next. Come on. We got questions. Come on.
Next.
Okay, this is a long one. This is a three-parter.
All right, cool. Let's see how fast we can get through these questions. Come on.
How do you handle remote authentication with either REST API or Firebase and local auth? How do you know which user info to return when the user authenticates with biometrics? I'm guessing by persisting the user's data, and if so, with Firebase that offers persisting data by default, since there are no persisted data after the user is logged out. Do I also use a local storage package like shared preferences? And most importantly, how to properly structure the code to put all this together? You pay someone. This is a lot.
I mean, I was going to say go back to the first part. What we got? Right. First of all, the key behind biometrics is all it tells you is they passed biometrics, they did not pass biometrics. That's all you get, right? The way you work like is that you actually store their login credentials in your app, and then what you normally do is you encrypt that with a private key linked to the biometrics, right? And that way, when they successfully pass the biometrics, you unlock the key and you can decrypt their credentials. Literally biometrics does not leave the device. There's nothing to do with the server. That's why you're going wrong here. Like there's no REST API with biometrics or anything like that. It just doesn't work. So all I would suggest you do is just generate a key when the first app starts running up. You can just generate like a random set of bytes. There's actually a cryptographic random seed thing you can use inside of Dart. I think it's in the random in the math package. Random has a secure random. Anyway, generate a random set of bytes, 16 and 32, whatever. Generate your AES key from that. When someone logs in, you take their username, their password, you encrypt it into a file, you store it on your private of your app. And when they use local auth package to authenticate, you use that private key to decrypt the file and to log them in with those credentials. Well done. You've done it. That's it. That's the answer to that. Was there a second part? Because that answers the first part of the question.
Let me see here. So I'm also researching something else.
Well, going along with what you said there, you do have to save off the encrypted stuff, so you still would need to do some sort of a shared preferences, local storage kind of package to do that.
Yeah. So there's I don't know if there's a package that actually does like unlocking of a private key with local biometric stuff. I don't know if there's like a built package. I know you've got the secure shared preference package, but I don't think it does that. I always find it weird that I don't recommend the secure shared preference, I think it's called, or something like that. It's quite a common one I find people using because it does require like a hardware key stop, but also the security on Android is a random set of letters that are hard coded into the package. Like, I don't get that. I'm like, why would you do that? So to me, that's not security.
And one other. Oh, go ahead. I thought you were done.
Well, I just want to see, does that if Firebase offers persistent data by default? Yeah, we've kind of worked that one out. So, do I use local storage package? Yes. Like share preference, and most importantly, how do I properly structure the code to put together? I think there's no like properly structured, just make them function that when they do this, it decrypts the file. There you go.
And I would abstract that out. I mean, that's how I would to structure it. You definitely want to abstract that out, for that.
One other side point, if you're going to use Dart math, you've got to be a little bit careful of name collisions. So a standard thing a lot of people do is they will import Dart math as math, and then you do math.random.
Same as Dart UI. It's quite a common one to do as well when you're doing render objects. Yeah. The main thing is because things like math defines min. So you can't have a function called min and use the math package min because you get a name collision. That means the two functions or two variables would have the same name. And it doesn't know which one to use. You'll get, honestly, the weirdest errors you find are when it says a function, like a function doesn't exist on a class does have that function. It's because you've got a name collision. So, yeah.
My favorite one of those is log. I'm log for everything instead of print because I like all the details of the fact that there's no length to it and no length limit. But now if you have math and you bring that in, then it has a log function too. So you have to be careful. Different log.
I was going to say the other common one that I've found that I've had problems with is the vector math library because the vector math defines colors and color as two classes, which Flutter defines color and colors. There's also
Yeah.
a couple of other like name collision classes that you get, like matrix and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You
Now,
know,
I am
you
quite
can
a
always hide if you need to. If it's just one thing, you can always hide. But yeah, easier just to rename it.
Yeah.
Alias the whole package.
you can do
Hide
alias
or
the whole package
add
as.
prefix.
You can also do show. You can also say so. You say import whatever the package name show XYZ, and it means you're only importing that one symbol from that file. Or you can say hide, and whatever symbols you want comma separated, and that will just hide those specific symbols and import the rest. So we have real big flexibility. You can actually use show and hide with as well, which is really helpful. So we have complete flexibility to get around name collisions. I'm not joking. This problem on C and C++ is a nightmare. Like it's like even Objective-C, when you go, the reason why, I'm going to just say this now, the reason why like an integer on Objective-C is NSInt or NSInteger, it's because you prefix with a few capital letters. So you've got your own private namespace that is like your own private sort of declaration of variables. So you don't get collisions. And NS stands for next step, which is the original operating system that the Mac is built off of.
My favorite one was Firebase's definition of user, which ends up being a useful class name for dealing with DTOs all the time. So
Yeah.
it's,
I'm not joking. I had so many problems with that one. Like it was originally called Firebase user for that exact reason. And then it got changed to user and was like,
no. Yep.
Don't do that. I remember when that happened. A lot of people were very unhappy. Speaking of not happy, there are certain things that a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way about. For a guy we know, Matt, it's he always wants golden tests. For Simon, it's formatting and commas. Remy had posted to Twitter recently that his pet peeve is getX. One of these is mine, and that is people expecting the Flutter framework to do things that it really should not be expected to do. Super editor should be built into Flutter. Absolutely not. Super editor should be built with Flutter. This question also came up recently. You may have seen it about putting a text editor in Flutter. Flutter is a UI framework. It's not a UI. I'm sorry. It's not an OS. OS has these things.
I'm gonna disagree to a certain degree, to some point here, because there are common things. I mean, the thing is, the reason why we have a button is common practice to have a button, right, in the UI. But that's why Mac puts into the UI toolkit. Since rich text input is now a common practice thing in quite a few applications, I think it should be put into the framework. But maybe not super editor as a whole, like a full editing package, but at least we should have the concepts and the base principles.
Exactly. Now that's fine.
On top of, and that's why I
the
think
ability to select, copy, cut, paste. Those are fine, and you use those as tools to build something else. We definitely could have those, but an entire drop-in editor, no, I don't see it.
So I think it's more about like what we're missing right now, and it's really different, and it's why Super Editor exists. And that is because to do those basic editing principles in Flutter is not a simple thing to do. Like it's just not built around that framework. So the base principles have to be changed to allow us to do things like make something bold, make something italic, and kind of do that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be specific things. It just has to have the ability, the base abilities to be able to build on top of and to do those nice complex behaviors.
No, and that's totally right, because you can't build the editor, which you should be able to use a UI toolkit to build that you make apps with in order to make an app that is an editor. And if you can't cut, paste, select, then you got a problem.
And I'd rather have the core team working on stuff that changes the fundamental nature of Dart Flutter can give us than for them to spend time on things that can be easily written as packages.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and one thing I kind of wanted to say on that, just to point out to people, for the people that don't know what Super Editor is, Matt Carroll really talks about why he needed to go and rewrite some of these widgets and the reasons why they were the way they were. And he's an opinionated guy, so he talked about how he why he thinks some of the choices that have been made in the main part of the team are there. So I would definitely encourage anybody that wanted to go find that, because he's definitely, I'm sure he's blogged about it, and then he's also got stuff in his YouTube channel about it, and it's very interesting to hear his reasoning for it. He does a good job of explaining why, what the problems were, like we talked about. For example, being able to, across different widgets, select and copy, things like that. But he talks about why they're there, and he talks about why they're not easy with the existing widgets, and some of his thoughts on it. So, anybody that's curious, is hearing a little bit about Super Editor and is curious about it, I'd recommend going and checking it out. And yeah, that's on the screen here.
Did he? I'm sure he had a blog post you were talking about, right? Like there's a.
Oh, he's done a lot of things about it.
On his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
This is on his YouTube channel. Okay.
Yeah. And it's actually maintained by bounty hunters now. And bounty hunters is an interesting concept. The short version, Matt is running a core of people who make things that are kind of open source. Companies will pitch in money together to bounty hunters, and then bounty hunters pays people to develop things like this. And then the companies all get to use it. The benefit for the companies is they don't have to pay the full price of development, right? They only pay a fraction of it, and they still get to use it. Part of the deal is that the community gets it as a package to be able to use as well.
Right. More questions.
We're all waiting to see who's going to click on that next, because we've all been. I don't know if you noticed the super list editor window come up, the web page, and then pop up again. That's because Simon put his up, and then I immediately stole it.
Yeah.
In Android app, if I put an SMS or background location permission, Play Store side rejects the app. How to handle this issue? Well, what did they reject it for? Because the problem here is those are two very, very delicate permissions, and you need to have a good reason to be using them, and you need to make sure that's clear in your documentation, that you have great screenshots, you have like all that kind of stuff that really describe that. And they reject it, and they'll normally be telling you why they rejected it. They didn't say, oh, you've got the permission, so we're rejecting you. It'll be, you can't do this, or if you're doing this, you need to do X, Y, Z. Like,
well, this is the Apple. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, Play Store. Okay.
Yeah. So inside the Play Store, the very, very bottom. So in the Play Store, on the menu on the left, if you go to the very bottom, there's app content. Click on that. There's a privacy section. You need to make sure your privacy section explains why you need these permissions and what they're about and all the rest of it. And inside your app, you need to have options for you to like request those permissions correctly. And normally you want to provide a dialogue that explains why you want the permission before you request it from the user. But
and they're always going to be very suspicious about background location, tracking people when the app is in the background.
There's literally, honestly, I can literally tell you right now, there is no reason to have in any app background location permission, because you can have a foreground service. No, you can have a foreground service that shows the user that you're doing something in the background, and then they can press the stop button on it to stop it if they want to, right? Like, that's what you want. That's why they've made it restricted, because it's a really bad thing to just track someone's location without telling them you're tracking the location, right? Like, you just don't do that. So yeah, and there must be a good reason to be doing it.
It's the kind of thing that can be really abused. So hopefully you weren't hoping to abuse it.
Right.
All right. When we use nested list view widgets in Windows app, the scroll does not work properly. When you use nested list view in a lot of places, it doesn't work properly. It's a rather tricky business.
Well, no, is it? It's not a nested. So there's no. What, like? Wait, hang on. They're just saying just nesting list views, or they're saying using the official nested list view, which it's not nested list views. It's nested scroll view or something, isn't it? Hang on, I'll look it up. Yeah, nested scroll view. Yeah. So you've got this class which deals with those problems, right? But it's designed for just nesting one inside of another one. Like, you don't. It's really, really bad to nest scroll inside another scroll. I don't think of any good reason to want to do that. Like, just don't do it. I can't think of a really good reason ever to want to do that. If you know,
The only thing I ever did that actually had a semi-legitimate use for that, I made this thing that looked like a slot machine, and it had so many rows it went off screen, and I was demonstrating how to use single child scroll views vertically and horizontally in order to make this.
No, that's fine.
It was
because
a demo.
But that's in different axes, and that will work
Yes.
fine. It's when you have scrolling in the same axis. It's like having a scrolling list and then putting another scrolling list in the middle. When I scroll down, I get to that middle scroll list, and I try to scroll more. I'm scrolling the little list, and when the scroll list gets to the end, then I'm trying to scroll the outside list. It's just a horrible interaction, and no matter what way you do it, it always ends up some problem somewhere. Don't.
One thing you could do, and remember, Jurassic Park had a wonderful line that said you became so enamored with the idea you could that you didn't bother to stop to think if you should.
Yeah.
But you could take one child in the one list view, put another list view in it, and make it not as wide as the parent so that people can grab the side. But you shouldn't.
No. I will mention, though, I know what his problem is, which is not that. When we were complaining about don't do that, the problem is you have two list views probably trying to use the same scroll controller. So if you don't specify scroll controller list view, use the primary scroll controller of the context. And what you need to do is you need to wrap your list view in a stateful widget with a allocated scroll controller and dispose that scroll controller and pass it over, and it'll probably be fine. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you just don't want to put nested scroll views inside each other.
Not like the API documentation for Flutter. You definitely don't want it to be like that. That is so horrible that I have to keep scrolling and scrolling. Come on, move up page, because I'm sitting in the middle of an example instead of in the page. Stupid.
But I mean, on a desktop.
I was just gonna say, with the scroll controller issue, there's times where you need to do it anyway. I've had, a circumstance where I've got a drawer that comes out over the window, and that drawer has to be able to scroll. And if you don't do anything, they try to use the same controller. You get it yells at you for that.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before, and I'm just going to mention it again. What the widget is: primary scroll controller, and you can wrap any part of your UI with this, and you give it a scroll controller that you create, and then that means anything in the child tree. You don't have to give it exact scroll. You don't have to pass the scroll controller to the list view because it will go up the tree and find this primary scroll controller. That's what it's there for. There's also explicitly primary scroll controller none to say I'm not providing one. So if you want to exclude part of your tree from using the primary scroll controller above your widget, you can stop that as well. So yeah, this is the way to deal with this primary scroll controller.
Alrighty. Next to last one here, and I did already answer this in chat. It looks like somebody's been reading very, very old articles. Why are Flutter apps large size output of the APK? That sounds like something from 2017 when it added 8 meg and now it adds 4 meg.
No, but it's not.
This isn't the old Android support library comparison issue?
No. So I know exactly. It's because they're fat APK files. They contain like multiple variations of Flutter for all the different devices out there. That is not what the user downloads to their phone. Just because you upload an APK file that is 100 megabytes does not mean the user downloads 100 megabytes. Okay? You upload it to the Play Store. The Play Store would show you an example of what it is to download. In fact, there's APK Analyzer, which I think will do that as well. Like there's a bunch of tooling. And you go look up Android APK size and you'll find there's a bunch of stuff around this. The idea is that you upload one APK file that supports a ton of different devices, they're different hardware architectures, like x86, x64, ARM32, ARM64. You've got 4 there. Now, each one of those is let's say 8 megabytes each. Suddenly, I've added 40 meg to my app, right? But the user only downloads the one for their device. So, which will just be the 4 or 8 meg or whatever it is, like bundle. So it's not even a problem. It's not a problem. You want to go see the iOS sizes; they're even bigger. And again, it's still not a problem. So
All right, last one. Then we're all going to have to get back to work. Is it possible to capture video thumbnails in Flutter Web? Firebase Functions thumbnail expires after 7 days. Repaint boundary screenshot not working for the video player. Number 1 is DRM set up for the video player.
Right. Well, first of all, repaint boundaries, taking screenshots of video player, do not do that. It's just not bad. It's not a good idea whatsoever. So first of all, that's not
lean up. Microphone.
Sorry. I'm saying repaint boundaries and video not a good idea. Don't do that. It's not going to work, right? So it's gonna fail all over the place. Don't even go there. It's not designed for that, right? Repaint boundary and taking screenshots. It's just not designed for that, right? Video player is an external component with external hardware textures. It doesn't work that way. Firebase functions thumbnails expire after 7 days. They don't expire after 7 days. You can generate them and leave them as long as you want. You just
might be a setting in it.
It's probably a setting somewhere. I don't know how you're generating that thumbnail, but you can go stick the file, the JPEG file, there, whatever you've generated, in a cloud bucket, and it's there forever until you delete it. So you can go do that. That's perfectly fine. Capturing a video thumbnail on web, there's a whole it's nothing to do with Flutter. First of all, if you're trying to do something on web with video, you go look at the JavaScript and the video documentation, because there's a whole streaming editing API that you can use to take a video stream, scan it through to the middle, capture a thumbnail. That's all built into the JavaScript APIs. But then you had to write a piece of JavaScript, do that, then call that from Flutter, which you can do. Is a whole thing that you can do. It sounds to me like I don't know what you're doing, but it's probably not needed. You probably don't need to do it on the client side. If you've got Firebase Cloud Functions already generating thumbnails, do that. Copy the output, stick in the bucket, you're done. It's nice and simple.
Yeah. All right. And to close it off, one more quick one with one quick answer. What is the best state management package? Well,
no. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Whichever one gets you paid.
I like to say, I'm going to write a state management package someday, and I'm going to call it YASMs. And anyone who has ever used SUSE Linux, you can figure it out.
I'm just looking at the chat. I just want to quickly say, yeah, Tony, if you want your question answered, you need to put a Q in front of them. We're not going to see them otherwise. So yeah, all these lovely questions, they're not going to get answered right now because we just don't have them. But the answer to your question is you can do this. You can go get the tangents from a path, and you can plot the characters yourself. It's not a problem. There's no need for the library to do it. So Flutter supports it just fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
All righty. That said, there's a rumor that we have bills to pay and flights to Norway that need to be paid for.
Yeah.
Just want to say happy birthday, Mom. She's not watching this, but it's her birthday today.
Go for it.
Happy birthday, Random Mom.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Happy birthday, Mom. Yes.
Ciao, everyone.
All right. See you next week,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks for having me.
Here.